everyone. Welcome back to Local Ag. It's September the 11th, 2025. I'm Melody Divers from the Bedford County Ag Advisory Board, and it's time for our 14th episode of Local Ag. But first, before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge that today is Patriot Day, a day to honor the victims of the 9/11 attacks. In addition, this week has been heavy with traumatic events. I just want to give space to think about these events and acknowledge the sadness surrounding our week. All right. Today, our podcast is all about bees and honey, and we have Zudekoff with us and Lee Wittekind from the Bedford County Rec Department, and they are going to clue us in on everything that we need to know about bees in Bedford. I'm excited about it. Anne is going to start off the podcast with sharing her plethora of experience and knowledge regarding bees and honey. And then at the end, Lee is going to end the podcast giving us all the details on Saturday's Blue Ridge Bee Festival right here in Bedford. So welcome, Anne and Lee.
Welcome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
All right. So, Anne, we are so glad to have you on the show. You are affectionately known as the bee lady. You knew that, right?
I did.
So your wisdom and experiences are vast, and I know that our listeners are going to be really pleased with this episode. So many folks have seen you with different workshops or things that you do here in town, but I think I met you first at the county fair. You were doing a workshop last year, and I know this year as well. So before you tell us your background, can you tell us how you're connected to the Bedford County Fair and what you do with us in the fair realm?
Well, I'm connected to the fair. I'm going to live in Bedford County, so I would normally just be interested in the fair. But mostly I got connected because a number of years ago I got interested in honey shows, both exhibiting in honey shows and becoming a honey judge. And when I learned about the ag competition at the fair, I approached Carolyn and I said, I don't remember whether they had a separate honey competition or not. If they did, it was very, very small. And I said, you really ought to have a honey competition because this is a part of most county fairs. And we got together and, we've been working on it. And every year we've had, a few more entries, and it's not quite as big a part of the ag competition that I'd like it yet, but we're still working on it. So, one part of beekeeping that a lot of people aren't aware of is just, showcasing your products. Mm-hmm. Everybody in ag knows that, you can bring chickens and pigs and ducks and all kinds of animals to the fair and they get judged. But, we're going to judge honey, and there's a lot of differences between different kinds of honey. And I've spent years studying these differences. So this is a real fun part of the fair for me.
Excellent. And so September 20th is when we have Centerfest, but the ag exhibits and competitions for honey and baked goods and things like that will be happening. So you said earlier when we were miking up that you're going to be a judge.
Right. The judging is going to be held on the 19th. Mm-hmm. And we're starting real early in the morning, about 8 o'clock in the morning.
Judging the honey.
Starting to judge the honey. And there'll be a whole other team of other judges with their own specialties.
Right.
Who are judging the other
right.
things.
Well,
so
maybe if we have time, we'll jump into what that looks like.
Sure.
But anyway, so if you have been to the fair before, you have seen Anne with her workshops and explanations of things of that nature. And we're grateful for your expertise. So, Anne, give us a little background on what you do involving bees. And I see on your shirt, are you a master beekeeper as well? Yeah, so we're just nosy. Tell us everything.
Okay. Well, I've started to keep bees back. This is my 20th year, actually. And I started keeping bees under the direction. My mentor was a wonderful gentleman in Bedford who most of Bedford County knew, George Kelly, who used to manage the local data and beekeeping branch, which used to be in Lynchburg, and he gave classes on beekeeping all the time. I took a first class under him, again, 20 years ago. I had no intention of ever keeping bees. I'm a northern lady from a small city. Insects of all kinds just totally crept me out. The fact that they had stingers on them just made it even that much worse. And I said, there's no way I'm going to do this. But I talked to George. My late husband and I met George. And he was one of these people who spoke so highly about bees. When he was speaking about bees, he just got this glow on his face, and he was just always so happy. And you left a conversation with him thinking that, wow, if I don't keep bees, I'm just going to be missing some important thing out of my life. He just made it feel that was just something you had to do. So reluctantly started to keep bees. and after a year or so, I began to realize what really turned him on and lit him up about bees, because it started to do the same thing about me. And I can't totally explain it, but sometimes I open up a beehive and I look inside and I get all involved in what the bees are doing, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not so good, but just the whole rest of the world goes away.
Oh, wow.
So that's
what a perfect
my connection to beekeeping, and
perfect
I've,
image.
Yeah.
It's when you were telling that story first, the thing I like that has nothing to do with ag, but what you were saying about your mentor, you want to stand close to people like that
Absolutely.
Just make you a better person just by being in their presence. So good for you for finding a person like that. The other thing is, when you were talking about the bees, it was almost like a mixture of magic and miracle. When you see the honey is created, like it doesn't really make sense why something so little can do something so great. So that seems magical and miraculous.
It is. It's a combination of magic and miracle and science.
Yes.
And you got to get the science in, or the magic isn't going to happen.
Right. Yes. That is awesome. So I did not know that you reluctantly. That makes this even better, because now you're the bee lady that maybe didn't want to be the bee lady to start with. So that's kind of fun. All right. Well, thank you for that background information. That's super cool.
Well, just another aside, speaking of the magic and the miracle, you mentioned that I did certify in 2016 as an Eastern Apiculture Society master beekeeper, which is a very vigorous testing and experience and everything procedure. My academic advisor, when he was giving the awards that night, the year I certified, I'll never forget this. He got up there and he was introducing, and he said, sometimes people consider beekeeping a black art. And that always
tickled you.
that was kind of at the height of the Harry Potter stuff. So
yeah.
So yeah, it's really a mixture of all of those things. Some of them mystical and many of them scientific, and it just, when it works, and when it doesn't, it's kind of heartbreaking.
But you're in a place now that you teach others about. So you're a mentor to some. I am. I would assume.
Yes, I am.
Yes, that is wonderful. So thinking about beekeeping today and all that you know, what would you say the biggest challenges are for beekeeping, and how do you adapt to those changes or change your practices up or address it?
Well, I wish I could say that there's only one big challenge. There's probably one major, but the challenges are many. It's like a perfect storm of stuff, coming against the beekeepers, and the bees and the beekeepers aren't the only ones that are experiencing this. We've got loss of habitat for the beekeepers, and you can't stop progress. You can't stop people building homes. There are the increasing use of pesticides. And it's not, even when pesticides are used responsibly, and the vast majority of people who are farmers, who are using pesticides are using them responsibly, but they do get into the environment. Mm-hmm. There are some that have a lot more hazardous effects on bees than others. I could go on and on about this, but that's mm-hmm. not part of this. So you have that. And those are things that you almost can't do anything about. You talk to your neighbors as far as the habitat. Well, just kind of encourage planting more stuff. Plant more stuff, native plants, stuff that bees like. Whenever you can. You can plant 10 plants, and it's not going to really help the bees very much. But if you plant 10 plants and you tell 10 people to plant 10 plants, and they tell 10 people to plant 10,
a nice ripple.
All of a sudden, you've got millions of plants, and wow, that's really helping bees.
Right.
But the big 800-pound gorilla in the room, unfortunately, is still this crazy little thing called the varroa destructor mite. It's a parasitic mite. It's an exotic species. It moved in the late 80s from Asia. And in all that time, we really haven't figured out how to deal successfully with it. So it really cuts the bee's life. It kind of requires us to do some intervention that most beekeepers are kind of anathema to do. They just don't want to put chemicals in their hive. They don't want to medicate their bees. But unfortunately, we have to do that. Otherwise, their bees are going to die. So we're fighting this varroa mite, and that's really the big...
Give us a little more information on, does the mite mess with the actual bee or the plant that the bee is?
It actually messes with the bee. It reproduces. It's what's called... Can I get scientific here?
Do it.
It's what's called an obligate parasite of honeybees, which it does not have any other host other than honeybees. There are other related mites that are found on other bees, but this particular mite is a parasite of honeybees. It lives and breeds inside the bee's brood cells, which means it's actually attacking the developing bee,
right,
the bee larvae. So it severely compromises their internal organs and their immune system. It's how much more?
Yeah, I was gonna say
I can get gross about this.
I had no idea about this. Lee, did you know about this? Because I'm the only one at the table that didn't know about this. Well, I've learned something today. I'm not glad about that, but I'm glad I learned something. So, how do you, like you said, you could medicate. Some people don't want to.
There are a number of things that we can do. There are probably at least a dozen or so approved responsible chemicals on the market,
right,
which when applied the right way, do a pretty good job of controlling these mites. Most beekeepers are trying to use something which is process pretty well known in agricultural circles called integrated pest management, where we start off with the most non-invasive procedures, like cultural procedures, and then we kind of, if they don't work, then we ramp up to the nastier things.
Okay.
So we're trying to do this. There have been many, many strides being made on the genetic level. People who are actually trying to breed a bee that has more resistance to this mite, who has, keep referring to bees as who, but bees that have mechanisms for, killing the mite, removing the mite from their hives. It's a long time. I mean, you don't make genetic changes in a couple of decades.
Oh, no.
So there's a lot of strides being made, but the bottom line is probably we're all using a few more chemicals than we'd like to.
But you're saying you're doing it responsibly and, with an educated background of what you're doing. So I feel
that's what we're trying to do. And that's why education is so important.
That's what I was going to say. When you do it correctly under an educated guidance, I feel like if you have to use it, that's the best way. Wow. Oh my gosh.
It's the best of a lot of bad choices.
Yeah, I was going to say that first question. I'm like, oh my word. Okay. Well, so besides the mite and environmental, is there any, like the habitat loss, anything else? Or I kind of feel like the mite kind of just did us in.
The mite's the biggie.
Yeah.
Couple of relatively minor things. We've got a thing that we call a secondary pest. And definition of again, you wanted me to get scientific here. Definition of a secondary pest is not something that inherently preys upon an organism, but just kind of is secondary, moves in. And that's this little critter called a small hive beetle. And it's about the size, it's about a quarter of the size, about half the size of a ladybug. And it's built like a little Volkswagen tank. You can't kill it. You practically can't smush it. They run around in the hive. They're attracted by a pheromone in the hive, which is let off when the hive is under stress. Okay. And then the beetles move in, and of course the beetles stress the hive a little more. Because the bees can't kill them because they're so tough. So they're a problem, and they've been with us since about the mid-90s. There's no chemicals, there isn't anything that you can really do to control them in the hive. The only thing that you can do is really do your best to make sure your hive stays super duper healthy and super duper strong. Okay. And that's that's a learning process.
Right.
So that's why, somebody just doesn't put bees in their backyard and say, okay, I'm going to do this. I got bees in my backyard. So, I'm still learning. We're all still learning how to control these pests.
And it would seem like once you establish, okay, this is how you handle this, then there gets another
something else
happens. Mm-hmm. We run cattle, so we're always like, when you think you have one thing under control, you're like, and now here's this, so you're always doing the pivot. But that's where education, and I'm sure that the bee festival is going to have a lot of good speakers. So,
and we beekeepers and the Scientific Beekeeping Society have been monitoring another mite, tropical mite. Mm-hmm. We've been monitoring it for about 10 years. We've been watching it. It's in Europe. It started in the tropics. It's in Europe now. It's probably a matter of time, less than 2, 3, 5 years before it gets to this country.
Gets over here.
It's been the large beekeepers are actively monitoring for it now. It hasn't been discovered in this country now.
But you're being diligent.
They're being diligent. It's called Tropolalaps, and it's going to make the varroa mite look like a pussycat. Ooh. So we're just hoping that we can keep it offshore.
Right. Absolutely.
So,
all right, let's go to a positive question.
Can I talk about one other nasty thing? And this is not anything that really hurts bees or beekeeping.
Okay.
But this is a thing that the past couple of years, everybody knows about it, but not everybody knows its ramifications to beekeeping, and that's the spotted lanternfly.
Okay.
Because the spotted lanternfly affects our honey production. Not our honey production, but our honey quality.
Okay.
Because the life cycle of the spotted lanternfly, they're beautiful, they're nasty, they destroy our fruit crops and everything else, and they don't do anything to bees. Bees couldn't care less. As a matter of fact, bees kind of like them, because what the lanternflies do is they'll hang out on trees and whatever, they'll suck the sap out of those trees, and they'll excrete a sweet, sticky liquid. Mm-hmm. Coming from the sap of those trees. And they do it at a time of year, which is right about now, August, September, when there's very little else blooming.
Okay.
Bees are looking for sweet liquid to suck down and make honey out of. What you've got is a dearth of flowers to get really good sweet honey liquid to make honey out of, and they're sucking the excrete of the sap from these lanternflies. So the bees love them. Okay. But the honey that they make from it, I'm not going to mince words. It's nasty.
Okay.
It's got an acid taste. It's got an earthy taste. And another word for earthy is dirty. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I unfortunately, beekeepers have adapted to this, or should, they better, I hope, ought to adapt to this by, we're going to lose our fall harvest because it's just going to be awful. So, I've adapted to it. I used to harvest like maybe 2, maybe 3 times a year. My last harvest now is probably late June or very, very early July. Because when I've harvested later than that, I start tasting a touch of this.
So you just kind of avoid having
I avoid that, and I say, well, I'll leave all this for the bees, and that's fine. Like I said, it's okay for the bees.
It doesn't hurt them. It's just the honey.
It does not hurt them, but as far as honey being the beautiful, clear, brightly tasting, fabulous sweetener that it is, it's going to lose all that. September honey in this area or any of the lanternfly infested areas is just going to be suspect, and that's going to really affect beekeepers, who might depend on honey for their for their income. That's going to restrict their ability.
That was very insightful. I've learned a lot. I'm so excited. I love a good podcast where I'm just sitting here like, tell me more. All right, we're going to swing into a positive.
Please.
So beyond honey production, what is the most important roles that bees play in agriculture? And how can farmers and the general public support this?
Well, the most...
and I think you touched on this about the planting, but you can say more.
Well, the most important thing is pollination. Really, honey is secondary. We love honey, and there's a pretty big honey market in the United States, but we are way down there on the list of countries that produce a lot of honey. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, honey's cool. We can't. It really punches above its weight. But pollination is really the biggie. Pollination is probably, it's estimated to be anywhere 15, 20, 30 billion dollars in pollination, revenue from the bees. And it's mostly commercial crop pollination, which a lot of the small beekeepers aren't really aware of, but the large farmer-type beekeepers who have thousands and thousands of hives actually move their hives around the country from crop to crop to crop to pollinate.
Okay.
For instance, the most popularly known is the California almond crop, because California supplies the world with about 80% of its almonds. Mm-hmm. And those almond trees need to be pollinated, and probably 80% of the bees in this entire country in February are out in the almond groves in California. Now, it's not my bees, it's not Lee's bees, it's the big commercial beekeepers. They've got all of the the majority of the bees in the country. But that's kind of, the extent of pollination, because you've got thousands and thousands of acres of, a monocrop culture. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to talk about monocrop cultures now. It's a necessary evil. But in order to pollinate them, you have to actually bring in dedicated pollinators for them, because there's never enough, native local pollinators to pollinate that much density. So beekeepers are, they're that's traveling bees. They bring their hives, to the almonds, to other crops in the Northwest. They come down around Florida for the oranges. They just travel around the country pollinating wherever they can. So that's the big economic value of bees, right, in the industry. And honey's a far second, but it's a great second.
Yeah, that is traveling bees. That's it. Check that off of something else.
That's because, Anne, that there's not enough habitat for them to stay there year round, right?
Exactly. When everybody had backyard farms, there's always enough bees in the environment and other critters to pollinate. But if you've got thousands and thousands of acres, you've got to bring additional pollinators in.
Yeah, because there's only pollination for that little small window.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's gone.
Yeah, exactly. And then they don't need the bees for the rest of the time. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't even make sense, for the orchardist to own bees. So the niche of the traveling beekeeper, it's a natural.
Wow, that's neat. So if someone is interested in becoming a beekeeper, what resources are available for those beginning, and do you have any advice? Good advice.
First advice is really learn what you're getting into before you get into it. Mm-hmm. Beekeeping's not, I say beekeeping used to be easy. It really used to be fairly easy, before the 80s when the varroa mite came into town. But still, beekeeping is a commitment. You should have a minimum of 2 beehives if you're going to be starting, so you can learn from their comparative development, and you have resources if something goes wrong. But you really ought to be prepared. You've got loads of choices when it comes to equipment, to management styles and stuff like that. And the time to find all that out is really before you buy your bees or buy your woodenware or buy stuff. So there are classes available. There are 2 local beekeeping clubs in the area. One is in Bedford, and it's Peaks of Otter Beekeepers. One is in Lynchburg, and it's Piedmont Beekeepers. They both have classes during they're usually in the early spring. Piedmont was considering having something in the fall, but I think they're going to delay theirs until the spring as well, because we haven't made those arrangements completely. So figure beekeeping classes usually start in the spring and they end right about the relative time where it's good to get bees. Mm-hmm. So bees are starting to be available right around April. So the classes typically run like from February to April. By April, students are just really gung-ho. They know everything they need to know about bees.
Yeah.
For their first year, they run out and they get bees, so it's fine. So that's what's behind that timing. So that's really the most important thing, is to know what you're getting into, because beekeeping's real complicated, and it's a commitment.
Right.
You don't just decide that you're going to be a beekeeper and then decide that you're, going to go up north for the summer, because your bees can't come with you, and somebody's got to take care of bees during the summer. That's high season for bees. You got to be there. I usually, I give a little talk. I've done it once already, and I'll probably do it at least once more sometime this fall. Haven't set a date yet, called So You Want to Be a Beekeeper. And it's really, it doesn't talk about what you need. It doesn't talk about how to be a beekeeper. It talks about what you need to know before you be a beekeeper. In other words, it's my scare away talk. It's my reality check.
If you can stay with it through that talk, then you're okay.
Really, and my objective in giving this talk is usually to discourage people from spending a lot of money and getting into something without really knowing what they're getting
Right.
into.
The prep pep. The prep talk for the pep. Yeah.
Yep. Reality check.
Yeah, for real. Now, we had touched on this at the beginning. On September the 20th, we have Centerfest, and the ag competitions for the county fair will be housed in Centerfest this year. So things like horticulture, baked goods, garden goodies, arts and crafts, and of course the honey category. Just for the sake of time, what are the top 2 things as a honey judge are you looking for when you are judging a jar of honey? The top 2 things.
Top 2 things would be, cleanliness and appearance of the honey.
What color are you looking for?
Not necessarily any particular honey. One color is not necessarily any better than another, but we're looking for it to be clear.
Not like with debris and stuff.
Not with debris in it. And taste is important. It's taste and appearance.
Okay.
I guess.
Mm-hmm. All right. That sounds good.
That's pretty much all of it.
Now, if any listener is interested in getting acquainted with beekeeping and talking to you, and what is the best way they can connect with you?
They can contact me through email.
Okay.
Do you want me to give you that email?
Sure.
Okay. It is beez.educated@gmail.com.
All right. So if you are interested and you're listening to this and you're like, I've got to talk to Ann. There you go. Go ahead and talk to her. She gave you the email. She gave you the green light. And thank you so much. I know we could have talked probably 2 or 3 hours more, because I can just tell that you are your wheelhouse is all things bees and honey. And I'm grateful that you were here today, because I definitely learned something. So thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. As most people do have to shut me up. So
no. Oh, gosh.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's always a joy to talk about bees.
Well, when you mentioned your mentor, I think I saw the glow when you were talking about it too. So you got the glow, girl. So you're doing what makes your heart happy, and the community's grateful for all your wisdom. So announcements. We're going to stay on with the bees. Lee, we're going to let you have this whole segment. So you take this the way and take it away with talking about all things with the Blue Ridge Bee Festival. Before you start with the specifics, how many years have you been doing the festival here?
This is only the second year.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was like, I feel like this is just year 2, but it just seems like, I don't know, on social media, it looks like it's really high interest. That's what it looks like. And
oh my gosh, yeah. People have, it just took off. I mean, there's a lot of buzz about it. Not to be,
But, when something like that happens, that tells me the community was ready for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it takes off that quickly, that's when you're like, they needed this. Mm-hmm. They wanted this. Mm-hmm. All right. So tell us every single thing we need to know about this Saturday's September 13th Bee Festival.
Yeah. So the Blue Ridge Bee Festival does incorporate bees, but we're also bringing in conversations or education about native pollinators, native plants, local food, which brings in agriculture as well. as just sustainable living. So people that are farming or homesteading or anything like that, there seems to be a lot of cross-pollination, we'll say, between a lot of these groups that are interested in the outdoors. So we're going to have a little bit of everything in regards to that. So, and it's also super family friendly. We want to cater to all ages and skill levels, people who've never kept bees, longtime beekeepers, garden enthusiasts, homesteaders. So we have a little bit of everything going on there. So some of the aspects of the festival that are really exciting, we've got educational talks. We have the state apiarist and local bee inspectors, master gardeners that are going to be giving talks about some of these issues that actually we were just talking about, the impact of bees or lanternflies, hornets, talking about honeybees in your backyard, how do you get started, hosting bees and pollinators in your backyard, and then attracting pollinators. So if you're just interested in any of those topics, we'll also be doing some demos too. So we have different styles of hives. They'll be represented, classical Langstroth. Some people will have top bars. Some people will have lay-ins. And these are all just different methods that people use in beekeeping. So we want to just give education to what's out there for people.
Right.
And you'll be able to meet these honey vendors. So we have 12 local apiarists that'll be there, so you can try all the different flavors of honey. Like Anne was saying, there is a big difference in the taste of the honey, just depending on what it was pollinated with. So come ready. So there's free honey tasting. We'll have some local vendors there as well, just with artists, crafters, local farms, homesteads, anything from baked goods to all the food trucks will be incorporating either honey or local produce or meat into their recipes, which is really cool. We've got local music, so really excited. We've got Leonard Blush and the Camel Cows and Brent Monster Band. They'll be playing throughout the day, so you can get your bee waggle dance down.
Yes.
Get your bees buzzing. So, and then for the kids, we've got some cool activities where they can make little seed bombs with the 4-H Extension Office using some native seed plants. And then butterfly bingo. So you go around to different vendors finding the butterfly, which Anne is actually one of those. So if you want to go chat with her, she'll be one of the butterfly bingo.
Okay.
Yep. So you can go see her, get stamped, and then you turn that in. You get a free packet of seeds. There'll be things like face painting, flower crowns. We'll also have a mother's helping tent. So for mothers that are breastfeeding or bottle feeding, mothers helping mothers will be there for doing lactation consultants or just have a nice quiet space apart or aside from the festival. This is a dog-friendly event too, so if you don't have babies but you have a little fur baby you want to bring, we just ask that they be on a leash, and they're welcome as well. So another thing that we do have that's exciting is our local meadery. So Graham Ordinary is going to be there with some taste flights, selling bottles, drinks of local mead, which is of course made with honey from their hives. And then we'll also have the YMCA there with some local beverages like cider and pumpkin ales and things like that they'll be selling. And another thing that we're selling is T-shirts. So custom-made T-shirts will be made actually on site. You can kind of pick and choose your logo placement and your color. That'll be through Ace Screen Printing. They're $25 a shirt. So you can get one of those, and you also can buy raffle tickets. So we have some super cool raffles happening.
Thought of it all.
One is the Bountiful Bee Company is raffling off a Lands hive. They'll actually be raffling that off with a hive stand, all frames and everything included internally for the hive, and then they'll also be including a nuke, a bee nuke. So come spring 2026. You actually get to start your little colony
It seems
through
like
that.
a really valuable raffle item.
It's over $1,000.
I know, that's what I was just,
Yes.
I mean, I don't know bees, but I'm like, that sounds like
Yeah,
like,
so it's all made from locally sourced cedar wood
Wow.
and insulated with sheep wool from local farmers. Really cool raffle there. So
That is.
he'll actually be doing a demo on converting Langstroth to lands, and then also just doing like a demo or educational talk on like swarm catching. So
Okay.
and how to get started with that. So we're really excited about that. And then we're also raffling off a traditional Langstroth hive, some local native plants from New Leaf Farm. And we got some gift cards and other merch that we'll be selling. So if you want to get in on that, it's $5 a ticket or $20 for five tickets. And those can be purchased the same place by the YMCA where the meat is sold. So in terms of that, there's good opportunities to get started there. There'll actually be people selling hives and such. Equipment, Dedant will be there, as well as some other groups. But like I said, there'd be a lot of beekeepers, so you can just ask these people questions like what they're seeing, what they're running into, and then just trying the honey. Because you'll eventually find somebody who's close to your area, and it's like, oh, like this is what my honey could taste like.
Right.
So other than that, in terms of parking.
And now, hold on, it's at Falling Creek.
Oh, yes. So it is at Falling Creek Park, which is right across from the sheriff's office. And we do have plenty of parking available. The maps are on the Facebook event under the discussion. You can kind of see where the parking will be at. Okay. But as soon as you turn into the park, we will have people there directing you to a spot. And you're never more than like 600 yards away from the festival at the furthest. So very walk-friendly, very family-friendly again. It is handicap accessible. So we want everyone to be there as much as possible. It's looking like a beautiful day.
Yeah.
The weather's looking very prime. So we're super excited about this. Totally free. So,
it just keeps getting better.
Yeah, totally free. I started these kind of community events, hearing from the community that they wanted opportunities to get together. And that really was one of the big messages that I heard and took and ran with, was they want a free community event, that it's ease of entry. And it's worked well for us. We have a couple other festivals that we do with different angles or themes, and they have all been very much successful. I think because in part that reason, it's just very family friendly, free, come and enjoy it and have fun and meet others who are into it.
Without it being about bees, what you can talk about this. What new thing will they see at Falling Creek Park that they didn't see last year at the playground?
Oh, yes. So we have an ADA compliant playground. We're super excited about that. It has been very well loved in just the few weeks that it's been up. You will notice that. You'll notice some improvements to the ground as well. The guys have been making it beautiful all week. But that playground has been very much loved, and by all ages. What I love about that playground is it caters to literally everyone.
The first time I saw a playground like that, it was off of 81 in Woodstock. And when I saw a child that had different abilities and needed different ways to get around, be able to play on the playground with other kids. Mm-hmm. That's the good stuff. I had never, tears came to my eyes. I know this has nothing to do with about bees, but this talks about Bedford behaving like it should be, and this is the good stuff right here. Yep. So congratulations on that playground. I know it's going to be loved Saturday at the event, and it's going to be a good time to showcase that. And that park, it's beautiful.
It is.
It's a win.
Yep, it's gorgeous.
We love it. Yeah, I like to take before the Ag Board meeting starts, sometimes I take a couple loops around and just enjoy the scenery. It's just beautiful. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was so excited about the playground. I wanted you to shout that out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're very excited to be adding that, and hopefully more things like that in the future for Bedford County. So.
Excellent. Anything else that we need to know about Saturday, or do you feel like we're in a good spot? Oh, is it rain or shine? But you said it's probably going to be a sunny day.
Yes, it is a rain or shine event.
Okay.
But it's looking like, again, a beautiful, beautiful weekend. Any kind of updates, like vendor maps, those are going to be posted today. So go check out the Facebook for those as well. We have over 73 vendor spots filled right now.
Wonderful.
So there's a lot of vendors, and all the other little details can be found on our Facebook or Instagram.
Excellent. Well, we're going to have to shut this episode down, but I'm so excited. Ann and Lee, I have learned so much. I'm excited. And thank you for being here. I know before an event, it's hard to carve out time to do stuff. So thank you all so much for being here. I know you probably have a full rest of your week preparing for Saturday, or maybe the wheels are already in motion.
We're sitting really well, but I very much appreciate just the opportunity to promote this. We want as many people as there as possible.
Of course.
So I very much appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, well, I'm
very
glad
excited.
It all worked out. Well, we're going to close this episode up for today, and we just want to thank everyone for being here and listening and learning with us about bees. If you want to get more involved in your in the local farming scene of Bedford County, you can come to our monthly Ag Advisory Board meetings. We get together the first Wednesday of every month at the county building off of Falling Creek Road, and you are more than welcome to come and hear what the Ag Board is discussing. Now, if you want to catch up on all of the local ag podcasts, we've been doing this for over a year. You can download the Media Squatch Plus app for free and listen to this podcast and all the other podcasts from local hosts. And also this week, we have a new ag podcast. I was really excited to listen to it. This is Living in the Jacket. It's unpacking the FFA experience, and it's from Liberty High School. They have their own podcast. So yay.
That's awesome.
Yay, the youth and ag. I love that. So go ahead and download Media Squatch Plus app and listen to this podcast and all the storehouse of other local podcasts. We are so grateful for Media Squatch. They have just helped us greatly get the word out about ag in our community and beyond. So big thanks to Media Squatch and our guests. And this is Melody Divers reminding you to be good to yourself and be good to others.